It is another windy day on the prairie. The winds have just been so extreme this year, and I have two questions of the day for you in that regard. Number one, so many people have told me it's really windy where you are too, so make sure to put your zone and let me know if you've had these extreme winds. Today it's a cold wind, tomorrow it's going to be a hot wind, but it's a maddening wind under any circumstances. So today I'm going to talk about some tips and tricks to container gardening and ways I think to make it a little bit easier, because I do so much container gardening and I bet you guys too do as well. And that's my second question of the day for you. Share with us your best tips and tricks to make container gardening easier, because so many of us do it, whether we live in an apartment, whether we live on a huge estate. Container gardening is just so popular right now. Container gardening is. And so here are some tips and tricks that I have learned. I haven't learned them recently, I've just modified them recently to make it a little bit easier for me. And that is what I'm thinking of as mobile container gardening. So a lot of us think about like having a garden shed. I've got a potting area in the back, or we have potting stations or potting areas. And because of that, a lot of times we are heaving our containers and stuff to those potting areas to process, to plant them up and just get them established. Well, a lot of times those containers are heavy, they're not portable, and so instead of the mountain going to Muhammad is going to go to the mountain. And in this case, I am creating a portable container gardening station just using my wheelbarrow, and I'll try to put a link to a similar variety to what I have. This way I can put my ingredients for my container gardens in here, and then I can just locate it wherever I need to locate it to make my container gardening easier. And then the only thing I have to do is just replenish the contents of it. And in this case today, I'm going to plant this massive urn, which is so heavy. No way I could move it. And this way I can just bring all of my ingredients, plants, amendments, everything, soil, everything to this pot. And it's very easy, it's lightweight, and it makes movement a lot easier. So the other thing I like about it is I don't have to bend all the way down getting in and out of a bag or whatever. I just have to bend down to the level of my wheelbarrow. Isn't this a brilliant idea, Stuart? So many of you have commented recently that you like it, that Stuart is sharing a little bit more input. So Stuart, this is a throwdown. As we do different stuff today, I want you to ask me questions, because you're not a real experienced gardener, even though you've been gardening with me for a while, and it might be helpful to others. Okay, so first of all, here's some other tips. So my tip number one is basically to have a wheelbarrow. My tip number two is to then prepare your potting mix inside the wheelbarrow. Now I want to show you exactly what my ingredients are, and a great money-saving tip. I think we did a similar video on this last year where I threw out a great big tarp and I mixed all of the ingredients, and I showed you how to use old potting soil, because you don't need to always discard it and just put it in your compost pile. So here I've got 3 different components to my potting soil blend, along with some Osmocote. So this is some old potting soil that I have put in here. It's got a little bit of gravel in it. It's got, just a few things, a little bit of debris that's been blown into it. And then over here, Stuart, if you don't mind showing, I've got another whole pot here with some spent gardening soil in it. And something else was potted in here. So I'm just going to kind of mix this. Again, I don't really care if there's gravel in there. I don't care if there's leaves and such like that in here. That doesn't really bother me. So I'm going to put that in here. And then in a ratio, and I kind of mix my soil like I cook. I'm not Okay, so we're not real exacting. And by the way, Stuart told me this morning, what did you make for yourself for dinner yesterday? Shrimp scampi? Shrimp scampi. Okay, kudos to Stuart for cooking for himself. I'm so impressed, Stuart. Why didn't you make any for me?
I know, right?
Yeah. So here is, I think of it about in thirds, I guess, when I'm using this blend. So here's my spent potting soil, okay? Then I have about a third of new rich potting mix, which is very rich, but it's also really, really heavy. And I think it's too heavy. And so if I'm planting bulbs or things like that, it tends to rot. It's also physically very heavy. I had to get Stuart's help because I'm having a little bit of a back issue today, and I had to get his help in just pouring it into my wheelbarrow. Okay, now because I really want to lighten up the mix, I am using some perlite, which is, it's kind of a heated up, some kind of mineral that then almost has a styrofoam-like consistency, but it's very organic. They heat it up till it kind of pops like this. And quite frequently, when you buy a container gardening mix, you'll see some of this light stuff in it. Over here, you can see some remnants of it in my old potting blend or my old potting mix. Okay, so what this does is it improves drainage, it helps the soil hold on to moisture, it lightens up the mix, and it just makes it, I think, a better quality, lighter medium. And this is what I think of as just an all-purpose potting mix. And then I added some Osmocote, which is a slow-release fertilizer. So let me show you. And by the way, I am not, I'm not extremely loyal to any one kind of brand of these. I tend to use whatever is there. If it's organic, of course, I prefer that. But sometimes Hubs picks it up for me and I just take what I can get. So this is just a potting mix from Stay Green. This is perlite. It's a Miracle Grow product. You could also use vermiculite, you guys. And then this is Osmocote, and I buy it. I get a big bag of it. And then obviously, my spent potting soil is from my own garden. It's from my own garden. Okay, so then this is just very gratifying. I've just got all of this, and I'm just going to mix it together. And it's cost effective, you guys, because see, I am not throwing out this old potting soil. I am just fortifying it, amending it. It still has some value and some life in it. And so I'm just going to kind of mix this all together. Now, depending on what I am planting, if I think it needs to be a lighter mix or a heavier mix or whatever, I can then reduce or increase one of the ingredients. But for me, this is pretty good, though I think, Stuart, I'm going to add just a little bit more vermiculite, because I want really good drainage, because today I am going to pot up some of my beloved geraniums or pelargoniums, both a combination of flowering ones and some scented geraniums. So I've got a really good blend here. Okay, now Stuart, show some pretties because I forgot my scoop. So show some pretties. You can show off your Chinese snowball viburnum and the blooming anything that's blooming and looks kind of pretty. There's still a lot of work to do. Stuart, you can feel free to make some commentary as you're showing stuff. The elusive Stuart. He is very enigmatic and mysterious. Okay, Stuart. Just on a side note, I find it so exhausting to work in the wind, mentally and physically. Okay, so here is my next trick. So I am going to pot this very heavy concrete urn. It has drainage in it, and yes, I could pot and plant directly in it, but I am not going to for a number of different reasons. But primarily because I'm going to be putting in some geraniums in here, and they will do great for the first late spring and the early part of the summer. At a certain point, it's probably going to get way too sunny over here and way too hot for these to do very well. And so I'm going to want to move them out of this pot into a different location. And I don't necessarily want to have to repot them, disturb their roots, and then also obviously have to do twice the work in potting them twice. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use one of these planting pockets, what are these called exactly? They're called different things. They're basically just fabric containers. This one is Vivison. If I can find a link, I'll get it to you. And these come in different sizes. In here, I'm using a 5-gallon container. But I love these because they're not only great for this, but if any of you have bought any of my Kobo baskets off of QVC and you don't have the right size pot or whatever, then you can plop in one of these fabric planters and they work great. And I also love them because when you're ready to remove them from whatever container you're using, they've got these handles on them. So it makes transport easier, and once I am ready to move these from this location, yes, plants can be moved from this location where it's not happy to a happier location, all I have to do is just lift it up by these handles and put it in another location. And then I can just drop another plant, like maybe this Eugenia or something else that can handle more heat and more sun, and then I can just plop another kind of plant in here without a lot of effort and without a lot of disturbance. I also like these because it's just not using up more plastic. And let's see, it releases heat, air prunes the plant's root structure. This is, by the way, this isn't a promo, you guys. This is just something that I'm using. Great for aquatic plants, aerates the root zone. Anyhow, there just is much to commend them. And they come in 3-gallon, 5-gallon sizes. This looks more like a 3-gallon size. So it doesn't fit exactly, but that's okay. I'm just going to nestle it down in there. And by the way, they do have perfect drainage, you guys. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my scoop, one of my handy dandy scoops. This is like a feed scoop. And I'm going to put some of this soil in the bottom. And then a lot of these, actually all of these geraniums I've got right here are geraniums that came out of the greenhouse. So they're a little bit leggy. They need some pruning. They need to get they really need to be cut back to get more bushiness, but nevertheless, you can kind of see what's going on. So I've got this pelargonium in this container. And by the way, I did not, but I should have hydrated all of these before I'm planting them. But I can kind of stick this in here, and actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna loosen up. Yeah.
People might be afraid to do that.
Okay, yeah. So I am just loosening up the root ball a little bit. And it doesn't hurt the plant, and it may seem a little bit brutal, but look what I'm doing. I'm kind of releasing these roots. Stuart, can you see that? And what that will do is keep them, and I'm also kind of root pruning it a little bit, but that will keep it from growing in circles, and it will encourage it to put out new roots and deeper roots into the potting medium that I've put in there. And the other thing that it does is it reduces the root ball size, because I'm going to really pack this. Okay, so Stuart, do you have any other questions about this? It's pretty.
The first time you ever did it, I remember thinking, is that real?
Yeah. Is it a little bit scary? And it's a little bit tough love, but you'll recognize what. Now, would I do this maybe in the dead of summer when it was really hot and dry and windy? Probably not. But this time of year is when plants are going into their active growth phase, both on the surface with their flower and leaf growth, but also their root growth. So I'm going to put that in here and kind of position it a little bit so it's already cascading over the side. And by the way, here is another container planting tip. Root balls don't really know which end is up for the most part. So this plant, I could plant it completely upright. I can torque it a little bit and the root ball really won't care. And that way I can get some instant maturity and the instant effect of kind of it being rather pendulous and cascading over the sides of the plant. So I love that. Okay, I've got another one here that really needs to be cut back. You can see it's kind of spindly, but that's okay. Here's how I work with them. So I've got gravel on the surface of this one. I'm going to remove the gravel. I'm going to release this and liberate it from its pot. I'm going to do the same thing to this. See how I've really just reduced that root ball size? Again, I should have hydrated these and I did not. I think I was resistant to doing that because it's so cold and I was afraid I might get wet. Okay, but I definitely will water this once it gets finished. Okay, I also probably typically would have already cut this back a little bit, but I wanted to show you what it looks like in this state, and I'll prune it back later. And by the way, this is one of my friend Monica's scented geraniums she gave me, and it smells just incredible. And anybody who grows geraniums know you sometimes can even overwinter them just bare rooted. I mean, with the roots without the soil even. So I've got a little bit more room in here now to plant this one. I'm really kind of cramming it in there. And then it looks like I've got room maybe for one more. Again, this one already naturally is going to cascade over the side, so I will like that effect. Now, inside here, it's kind of difficult to see. Give this another blend because I've added some old mix to it. There are some voids around the edges. It might be too hard to see, Stuart, I'm not sure, but there's some voids around the edges, just little holes that I have created that I need to. Now I'm moving around here. Sorry. Okay, see right in there? Like there's a little void right there. And I don't really care that there's something of a gap between this fabric planter and the edge. I don't really care. I don't really care if a little bit of soil gets in between the pot and the planter. That's okay too. But I do want to make sure that I don't have any voids where there's no dirt, because I don't want there to be any kind of air pockets in there where the roots would grow into a void without having contact. Okay. Now, over here you see I've got another couple really overgrown, aggressive scented geraniums, but I could put that one there. That one's really heavy though, so I might go with this lighter one. It's a little bit more appropriate to the scale. And there is just, you can't see it, but Stuart, do you trust me that there was just the perfect amount of space for that? Stuart, do you trust me? Stuart and I, for those of you that are new to the channel and ask who Stuart is not my husband. Stuart is photographer extraordinaire, my business partner, my good buddy, my confidant. I'm his confidant. We've gone through many rough times together, haven't we, Stuart? And many good times, too. Okay, so again, I'm just packing that down in there. In short order, this will really begin to grow and fill out and spill out over the edge and put out all sorts of new blooms. I will deadhead it. And water that in. And then the other thing is, once I get finished, and this, by the way, I'm not going to mulch and gravel or anything like that. This is just going, because it's going to get so full so quickly. And yes, somebody might say, are you going to put in maybe any kind of support on this? Maybe make it go vertical. I could put a tutor in here. I might do that, but I think I'll wait till it's a little less windy and a little warmer to do that. But this way I have this jolt of color here next to the Deutzia that is about to do its thing. And even though, what's the date today, Stuart? The 8th, I think. Our average last frost date is April 15th, but I definitely have looked into the future, and we have no frost on the horizon. We actually haven't had any days below freezing for a while now. So the other thing I love about this is then when you're ready to clean up, all you do is just put all of your contents into your wheelbarrow. Might take me a couple of trips, but I just put it into the wheelbarrow, and then I just empty it of whatever I don't want, and then come back, refill it with more potting medium, and then just take it where I am going to pot up something next. And I'll probably be sharing that with you a little bit later. So Stuart, I'm going to water this in. Now I'm going to come back and I am going to deadhead it and make it not quite so spindly. So if you look at it from above, Stuart, that's a little bit prettier vantage point since it hasn't matured a lot. So, any other questions, Stuart? Have I forgotten anything? Okay, well, there you go. I hope you really like these tips. And Stuart, we've got to put all these links up. But basically, to summarize, use a wheelbarrow for a number of different reasons. It's kind of portable. It's a portable potting station. You can just roll it to wherever you need to go. Use your old potting soil. It's a money-saving trick, and it also doesn't have to go directly into your compost pile or, God forbid, into the landfill. And then just make your own blend and customize it a little bit according to what it is you're planting. And by all means, you can lighten it up by using some perlite. And then use some of these fabric planters to make switching out your container gardens a little bit easier in the future. So there you go, some container tricks, tips, and hacks to get your container gardens ready for this gardening season. Well, if you've held on this long, here is my outfit du jour, rather thrown together because we've got a lot going on today. So I'm kind of, I don't know, I feel a little bit discombobulated. My earrings are just these beaded earrings I got off of Amazon. Stuart, we absolutely have to put up a link to these because I'm sure we'll get lots of questions about it. These are some beaded hoop earrings that my sister turned me on to, so let's put a link to those. My jacket is one I've had forever, my puffer jacket. It is from Gap, and let me tell you, it really does work to keep this very cold wind out. My shirt, I'm not even going to take this jacket off too much because it's too cold. This shirt, it was actually a gift to me, but I think it's from Amazon, and I will put a link. I love it because it's this kind of oversized look that does this, what's it called, Daisy Dukes Daisy Duke's thing where you tie it at the waist really well. It's big and oversized and I like it, and it's a shot of pink, and I'm trying to wear a few more bright colors than I normally do. These breeches were gifts to me from H&M and from my son and new daughter-in-law. And my boots are, what are my boots, Stuart? I never know what my boots are. These are, I'm sorry, this is Hisea, H-I-S-E-A, and these are boots that I love because they're so easy on and off, and they are very, very comfortable. And you can see how I just was able to slip that on without even having to touch it. So now I'm going to zip my jacket back up because it is really cold out. So there you go, there's my outfit of the day.